within it. So I'm excited to invite Ed Crooks up onto the stage with the Financial Times to help lead this discussion. Please join me in welcoming Ed.
Hi, well, thank you very much indeed for that. Thanks for the introduction. As you say, we're going to be talking about game changers here in one of the final sessions of the conference. I wanted to, can we have got the word cloud? Can we get the word cloud up? We've got, I mean, it seemed to us as we were talking about this that actually game changers is quite a lot of what we've been talking about already during the course of this week. And as you can see, there's quite a few mentioned up there. People talking about blockchain, about what else we've got, digitalization, about sensors, the internet, the media I see is up there. Hopefully only talked about in a positive sense, I'm sure. I'm sure everyone was very complimentary about that. Anyway, so what I really wanted to do now is to talk a little bit about the practicalities of getting to some of these things. You know, game changer, obviously a terrible bit of jargon. What does it actually mean to have the game changed, and how does the game get changed? And it's my great pleasure to be able to introduce two fantastic guests to talk about this. As you know, we've had a load of great speakers all week. I think probably we've saved two of the absolute very best until last. It's my great pleasure now to introduce Alison Silverstein, who's an independent consultant, fantastic record, working at Pacific Gas and Electric, at the Public Utilities Commission right here in Texas, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Also played a very key role in the debate over reliability and resiliency that you may have just possibly noticed, getting one or two stories about it in the news over the past year or so. And also Professor Massoud Amin of the University of Minnesota, who I don't think he'd say this himself. I would say certainly that he is this country's leading expert and academic expert in the electricity industry. I'm sure you'd be too modest to claim that honor for yourself, but I think probably just about everybody else in the country and indeed of the world would recognize you as that. So thank you very much indeed, both of you, for coming along to talk.
So before we start, one thing for Ed, Massoud and I are both known to go on and on and on as speakers, so I wanted to give you a little aid to manage the discussion. The only thing that Austin is known more for besides music and barbecue is an absolute necessity is hats, sunglasses, and koozies. So here is an official Austin koozie. Cat Metro, if there's anyone here, this is your koozie. And you should feel free, if one of us is talking too long, to wave it, throw it, whatever is necessary to get our attention and shut us up.
I will be delighted to do that. I have to admit my ignorance. What is this? What is a koozie?
You put your beer in it. Where do you people come from?
Do you know what? Do you know what? In England, we have no need for one of these, except.
Well, climate change is coming. You'll thank me later.
Well, thank you.
Alison, we have Mr. Blarney, and we are old friends. We have worked together for close to 20 years. So we have a good habit of doing a dynamic duo, but talking.
Fantastic. Well, I will certainly, I have the blue card I will wave then if I feel you're running away. And certainly I'd also like to give people a chance to ask questions from the audience at some point during the session as well. We're going to have a microphone there which we'll be able to use. But anyway, perhaps Massoud, if you could kick us off then. As I say, thinking about what it means to change the game and how you get there. Talk a little bit about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crooks. Good morning. I'm honored to be here. This is a very special Energy Thought Summit, 5th anniversary. And later today, we are going to recognize an amazing colleague as the Thought Leader of the Year, Ms. Paula Gold-Williams. So it's my privilege to present to you a little bit of parts that may hinder some organizations from going forward. When you think about all the words on the screen, I know it's hard here in the middle to see them, or everything you have heard here in this amazing summit and elsewhere, what makes you worried about going forward? What prevents you from executing and getting smart grid or energy services that are part of that a reality? What is it? Just shout out. Cyber attacks. Cost. Excellent. Standard things working together. Complexity. All regulation. Thank you. Perfect. All of these are what? Good leadership at the end of the day is about what? Integrity, honesty, great communication, taking care of your people, but it's about good risk management, right? Good risk management. It's all about risk management. So when you look at risk management, you have sunken assets, many of you. How do you move forward with this step going forward? How do you continue with things that are working and things that are not working? How do you harmoniously balance that? How do you make smart grid real in real world? That's the challenge, right? Taking everything we have heard through a funnel called dynamic risk management in all aspects, very practical. This is a very practical talk because I live it every day. So these are some of the aspects. I don't want to walk too far from the screen, and I want to give equal 2 minutes on each side, but you look at all the areas you have, different areas, and the VUCA word, volatile and uncertain, and being so much full of worries that you have cyber, resiliency, natural disasters, business risk, ambiguity, complexity, all of that feeds into it. So what do you do? If I may start on this side, please look at your far right hand or far left hand column. Look at all the risks: financial risk, people, organizational risk, what CEOs worry about, security risk, operational risk, customers, technical. You put this, we can no longer look at this modernization as a single siloed event. It's a systems approach. We have to think about the whole system as a whole rather than a silo. So what do? We explore. That's what you heard, organizations that have courage to explore new things. Innovation doesn't have to be a dirty word, doesn't have to come with risk if you approach it from a point of view of how do you move forward, managing all these dynamic risks, and have a dashboard. So you look at the feedback loops, closing loops you have never closed before. That's the key. So how do you move forward? You apply to the front end. You do your job really well as the systems approach up front, managing 360 all of these areas of risk. You're already off to a great initial condition. After that, it's a question of how do you execute, how do you operationalize things? And it basically becomes rigidity of the organization and flexibility. It's almost like the yin and yang, continuity and change. So in my institute, a Technological Leadership Institute, since I left EPRI 15 years ago, we do this. That's what we train people to become effective CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, COOs for technology-driven companies. And a lot of it is hard to see, but managing chaos, having sensors, not just IT, but operational technology. You heard a lot about IT. It's also operational, OT. On top of that, people, enterprise risk, all of that. And then the question is, what are you measuring? How do you separate noise from the real signal? And then creating organizations that are ambidextrous, can actually innovate, can look to exploration, and can at the same time correct themselves and continue with what's working. The view you heard from larger utilities are very different from more entrepreneurial, smaller utilities. Why? Because they focus, there is no cookie-cutter solution. You have to customize these best practices, manage risk in a dynamic way for your organization. Thank you.
So Alison, Massoud's just been talking about risk management. I guess you could say that's something you've been thinking about a lot in this very rapidly changing and evolving industry. You've been doing a lot of work on reliability and resiliency and what those mean now in this changing environment. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. And I'm going to start by saying from a personal risk management standpoint and in terms of protecting my own reliability and resiliency, I'm not going to walk around because I know that for me the risk is that I'm the person who falls off the stage and I don't want to be that person today. So in order to protect my personal reliability and resiliency, I'm staying in the chair. So one of the interesting things about the word cloud is that it shows us three things. It shows us stuff, it shows us processes, and it shows us people. And all three of those things, when you are running a company or when you are running a system, you need to be addressing issues around stuff, whether it's hardware, software, or processes, which is how you do those things, or the people who do them. And speaking of risk management, one of the biggest risks and obstacles is usually the real estate between your people's ears. Because we are all I go to clubs and I notice that the imported sound engineers, they're all deaf, so they all turn up. They've listened to too much music, they crank the volume way too high, because if they can't hear it, it must be too quiet. We all have that same deafness about new ideas. So that's one of the biggest risks we need to address, is the assumptions that we have about what is signal and what is noise. But in terms of official power system resilience and reliability, let's just take a second to define the terms. Reliability is all of the things that we do to keep the system operating and to prevent the loss of service to our customers. Resilience is what happens before and after the outage. So reliability essentially happens up to the point of the outage. And resilience is all of the things that we do to reduce the probability, the duration, the consequence of those outages, so that fewer customers are harmed and the harm is less. So it's how do we recover, how do we prevent, how do we reduce the risk? And there have been a number of fascinating discussions in the industry, some of them ill-advised and most of them useful because we learn from them, maybe not as much or as fast as we'd like people to learn from them. But resilience isn't just something that you do by, for instance, keeping coal plants online longer. Resilience is everything that you do in addition to reliability for planning, for sending out engineers to do emergency recovery with drones. It's giving people the tools and liberating their ability to be smart and fast so that we accelerate recovery. Part of it's smart grid. A lot of it is, which my friend Massoud has been working on forever. He's known as the father of smart grid, or the godfather perhaps, which is scarier. But
I'm still a kid.
he is still a kid. But a lot of the things that resilience and reliability are about people being careful and following good practices. It's not just about hanging more bright, shiny objects on the grid and saying, now I'm reliable. It's about following checklists. It's about doing things smarter. It's about having good rules. And by the way, in the interest of regulation, I just want to put in a marker that for all of you who think regulators are an obstacle, your job as a regulated utility is not to let the regulations get in the way. Your job is to come up with good ideas and find a way to help your regulator say yes, not just to whine. Thanks, I just need to get that out of my system. Back to you.
Thank you. So when you're thinking about this in the context of a changing industry, I mean, you gave a couple of examples, smart grids, use of drones. What are the ways that our understanding of reliability and resilience are changing then in this new world?
Well, I don't know that everyone else's views are changing, but mine are.
Right.
And I define reliability and resilience ultimately, a lot of you are looking at metrics in terms of the stuff that you run your system around. So you're defining reliability or resilience in terms of, are my poles still standing, or how much of the generation system is still running? A terrible report came out a couple days ago from NETL, the National Energy Technology Laboratory, that says that the coal industry was resilient because all the coal plants had produced more power when the bomb cyclone hit the Northeast. The answer is that has nothing to do with resilience. Half of those plants were not running because they cost too much to run. So the fact that they were able to crank up during the bomb cyclone doesn't mean they were resilient. It means they were underemployed. So my definition of resilience has evolved to the recognition that the most we can do today for resilience is we must define both resilience and reliability in terms of the customer and her well-being. So it needs to be number of outages, probability, and how you change the probability number and impact of outages and of customer outage minutes. And those should be the bottom line for everything that we do to try to improve reliability and resilience. That's at least the Silverstein definition. And one of the things that means is to go back to the discussion of design. more and more the things that are most improving and most impactful for reliability and resilience are the things that we do to help our customers survive outages, because shit happens. And your customer doesn't care whether she's out of service due to an earthquake or a hurricane or a car pole accident. Car pole accident being my favorite euphemism for stupid people, because it's always the car that hit the pole, not the possibility that the pole was in the wrong place or the driver was stupid. So the more that we can do to do tree trimming and on design to make building shells and appliances infinitely more energy efficient and designed to protect customers from the consequences of everything bad that happens, the more we are making the customer able to survive all of the things that are getting worse and affecting power systems.
I'm nervous to use this, but I wanted to bring Massoud in here if I can. So what's your take on this then in terms of...
Resilience, as we know, originally means bouncing back from misfortune or from an adverse body impact. When you're a martial artist, boxer, you're hit but you don't go down, you bounce back. When you're a child, University of Minnesota Psychology Department pioneered work on resilient children. They go through misfortune, but they bounce back as amazing human adults. My work on resilience began in the 80s, worked on F-15 with the Air Force and Israeli pilots, and moved that concept back in 20 years ago to EPRI. And that's really built in within smart grid. So smart grid is not just an overlay. And I agree wholeheartedly with Alison. It's not about resilience of the physical system. It's enterprise-wide. The part I shared with you on risk actually enables resilience, because you are making loops, feedback loops, measurements to be proactive, to have foresight with managing risk as you move forward and pre-positioning things that we often do post-mortem because we are good firefighters. We welcome firefighters. It's hard to justify cost before misfortune happens.
When I hear you say that, I'm sure you're right, I wouldn't dream of arguing with you, but it sounds terribly daunting. It makes it sound like it's kind of everything, and it's the whole world, the whole system, absolutely everything's important. How do you find your way through that?
You prioritize, of course. Please, ma'am, you first.
No, go ahead.
With every situation, you prioritize, and it's a dynamic risk. It's the probabilistic dynamic risk, so you have the dashboard, and stuff are coming. Before moving to EPRI in January of 98, I worked with the Department of Defense from 82 to 97 with Air Mobility Command and Transcom. Large logistic networks, data overlay over battlefields, etc. Operation Just Cause in Panama, first Gulf War within the Desert Shield and Desert Storm. You look at the whole system, weather is moving in, stuff are happening. How do you prepare for those things? But you don't go for every little tiny risk. You come up with a list, and the list changes. Contingencies that we have in the utility system never collapses when it's 4 or 5 stuff happening, especially with the managing of the climate change and adversity.
And then critically, you need the tools to give you a view of the whole system, which maybe you don't have, right?
You certainly need tools, but the other thing you need is agility and flexibility and the ability to recognize that a situation that doesn't meet your usual rules and perspectives is nonetheless important, and you need to be able to pivot to deal with that, which means you need tools that are flexible, but people that are flexible, and you need to know when to back off the checklist and to say this is some different thing than I've dealt with, and here's how we're going to pivot to deal with it.
And how do these technologies then, and some of these things that we've been talking about, or we should change that? Sorry,
yes, please. For technology, basically enables, if I may say, these sensors that you see, and enables you. That's what you do. You connect deployment, adoption of technology. First, you place small bets. You learn from small bets. 5%, whatever your company. The other rest of the industrial sector typically puts 7 to 13% in the R&D, applied R&D. Unfortunately, our sector put less than 0.17 of 1%.
I knew it was low. I didn't know it was that low. It's amazing, yeah.
And there are many. There are over 3,000 asset owners and operators. So it's hard to have a unified band of brothers and sisters working together to advance progress. So how do you deploy technology, place small bets, and you do it in a way that you can scale it up. And how to scale it up gets back to what I shared with you earlier, managing all those risks, and then being open. That's how we attract also better workforce, young people. I deal with them from age 23 to 72 are my students. And I can tell you, you put a 72-year-old with a 28-year-old over time in the same study group, they were fantastic. But it takes a different type of technical person or manager or leader to connect together, be able to be open to change, to balancing change and continuity.
So some of the data and technologies that enable us to be more flexible in terms of how we operate the grid are a whole lot of monitoring and measurement technologies. I never go anywhere without putting in a gratuitous plug for synchrophaser technology, so check. So detailed monitoring of your systems, of your power plants. You heard about digital monitoring of all of the NIPA assets, for instance. So you want to know what's going on the grid. You need infinitely better situational awareness, and one of the things that we need is control rooms that are much more tailored and human-centric, rather than just, once upon a time, all of our operators in the control room were the guys whose knees were too bad to be linemen anymore. We're finally bringing people significantly younger with significantly more training and comfort with advanced technology, but we've still got a lot of the old habits and old screens up in the control room, because it's not just SMUD that said it's the SMUD way. It's everybody's operators who don't want to do a flash cut to a new set of screens. But there's an awful lot of capabilities in terms of visualization tools and data analysis to do better situational awareness. We've got huge value potential from AI being applied in a bunch of different things. And one of the things that AI can do, as we heard yesterday, is give us much earlier awareness and warning as in terms of potential anomalous situations that require attention. And it can also be used longer term to create good decision support tools for operators in a variety of circumstances, even the ones that we didn't study and prepare for. So that's a really exciting set of opportunities. A lot of the sectionalization and smart grid stuff that's out there being deployed across the system is also good. But you have to be open to monitoring people's Twitter feeds, to be able to everybody already has the weather station and CNN in their control rooms, but there's a lot more information sources that we have to be pasting together and learning from.
Thank you.
And the other part of it is with the data, as Ms. Paula Gold-Williams mentioned, is security and privacy.
Right.
So how do you move forward? And right now, when we think about security, we think of it as a post-mortem or as an afterthought, not as something that we put as part of design criteria. And most of our software, and we have had the privilege of working in this area for just over 20 years, were not built with security in mind as a design criteria. So the question is, as you upgrade your IT and operational technology, as well as your human capital is your greatest asset you have in any enterprise, period. When a person walks out of the room, leaves your organization, what do they leave? And that gets into cyber physical security at every level. As we know, as you heard throughout the conference and you heard from Alison, if you think about what we do in our energy sector, transportation, water, all of it, we build layers of nested Russian dolls around the innermost doll, the most precious doll, which is the humanity and human beings. So how do we move forward in the next 10 years, 20 years, the time horizon of 2028, advancing progress while guaranteeing better efficiency, less footprint on the environment, more resiliency, more security and privacy? It's not that hard, actually. I know it sounds like a daunting task, but if you put all of them, stack them up as a system, you can go through them.
No, we're close to running out of time, I'm afraid, but I would like to give people the chance to ask a couple of questions. Is there anyone who had anything they wanted to get from our panelists? Yeah, there's one down. I'm sorry about this. The mic's up here. Could I get you to come down here and use the mic? It's much easier if you would line on mic, and also that it helps with the recording. Sorry about this.
Yes. You can ask it afterwards. Actually, you notice Alison and I and Ed don't hold back. We tell you, we are using the Texas style. All you all. Go on, talk. No worries.
So, quick question. Hear a lot about data, lots of data. So, data in and of itself is of no value. So, when you're trying to analyze data, you need to provide expertise, someone does, to rationalize that. So, where do you find the expertise to rationalize the monstrous amounts of data you're getting from processes in OT or IT or whatever? Somebody has to sit down and figure out, like in typical OT where you have an RTU, you can get a zillion points off that box. What points do you need? Why do you need them? Who wants them? When do they need them? And what's the efficiency you're trying to drive? And what are the KPIs? So who rationalizes that data?
Great question. Yeah. That KPI is huge. And here's what you do. The value of situational awareness, please, yes, stand behind the...
Okay.
The value of situational awareness is actionable intelligence, which means you have taken raw data, you have turned it into better awareness, and you can act upon it. So what does a customer need, and what percentage of customers we heard throughout the summit need that actionable intelligence? What percentage don't? Connexus Energy in Minnesota did a poll. 2% of their customers did not want to have anything to do, just send me the bill by paper. But the other 98% had different degrees that they wanted to act upon. So with data, raw data, there's gold in there, there's platinum in there, and there's junk in there. And that's what I was talking about. How do you separate the junk from the crown jewels? Then you get into machine learning and AI.
And part of the issue there is, again, let me go back to the example of the deaf sound engineers who aren't paying attention to something because they don't have good situational awareness about how it sounds to other people. If you make a decision too early on about what data matter and what data tell you what the real story is, you run the risk of missing a lot of important stuff because you were blind to or deaf to important input. So my preference for data analysis is hire a firm who knows how to do it, because the technology is changing far faster and the capabilities than what you can train and import in-house. So yeah, you need a couple of tamed data scientists on your staff, but in the classic buy versus build thing, this is a service that you buy because they are smarter and faster than you. And then you let everybody else, then you throw the data net really wide and let it tell you what the story is rather than assuming that you already know.
Allow me to add just one quick footnote. What you're asking, actually, if you project it forward to 2028, is going to separate how effectively you gather, collect, extract data toward knowledge, actionable knowledge, and you execute, is going to separate winners from losers. Not only in our sector, I would say in every sector of digitized economy.
So you're saying grab all the data, do some analytics, determine your baseline, and then figure out where the anomalies are. But I guess if I'm a CIO and I want to spend money on digital transformation, what do I spend it on? I mean, in other words, how do I form my KPIs? What data do I need to achieve those KPIs? Somebody has to rationalize that. You can't just throw it to some software that you think might tell you there's an anomaly.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to let, we got someone else who had a question. This sounds like an excellent one to discuss in the next coffee break and over lunch maybe. But I mean, it's a great question, but I did want to give the gentleman behind you, if you were able to, did you want to come and get your question in?
Hi, thanks for a good panel. I'm Eric DeRosier from ADL Ventures. So my question is, where does leadership need to come from, and how can we break through jurisdictional barriers? I'll give a very concrete example. So NERC, right? There's a NERC reliability standard 1 in 10, which Texas is moving away from, and that's great. That implies a value of lost load of $100,000 per megawatt hour, which is a lot. Most of the outages happen in the distribution system, and we have a lot of advanced technology that's available to us to move us forward to make sure that we have robust distribution systems. But because of that high reliability standard for the bulk transmission and generation system, we're putting most of our resources there as a society. And on top of that, so NERC does not have the jurisdiction to go and account for behind the meter self-generation capability for critical loads. So they're basically implying that we need to supply all of our reliability with generation and transmission without accounting for demand-side flexibility and on-site generation.
Sorry, is there a question?
Yes.
Sorry.
to get back to my initial question, so where does leadership need to come from to break these path dependencies, and how can we break through some of these problems like jurisdictional limitations?
You do not want NERC to have jurisdiction over the below the transmission system, just saying. Nor do you want FERC in that space. What you do want is to understand that, as in every other human endeavor, ideas move slowly, but they do move. And I believe that the questions of how do we most cost effectively deliver reliability and resilience, and where do we spend the money, and what are the answers to that, are emerging, and it requires more and more people sharing a common understanding of what are the definitions and what are the solutions. I'm pretty sure that our friends from CPS in San Antonio well understand that the effort at the distribution system significantly dwarfs what we're spending at transmission and generation, but is undercounted, underrecognized, and underappreciated. So it's a question of better accounting, better recognition, and growing shared understanding to the point where pretty soon, within a couple of years, NERC and FERC, I am hopeful, will have a better understanding of how you truly deliver reliability and resilience cost effectively.
And echo that. Leadership, don't wait for some white-bearded old man on top of the mountain to point you in the right direction. Peter Drucker said, leadership, really, when you think about it, is very simple. He said that 3 things happen naturally in organizations: friction, underperformance, confusion. Everything else takes leadership. So all you all are leaders. That's it. Don't wait. And if you're passionate about bringing a positive change, and it's not for your ego, it's not for self-grandiose, do it. Do it. That admiral, Lady Admiral, remember what she said? She said, don't ask for permission, do it, and if you don't make it right, then pardon yourself. Be honest about it and admit to it. Take charge of what positive change you want to bring. And don't wait for NERC or FERC or somebody coming and telling you what to do. If there's a roadblock, a pinch point, a glitch, find a way, honorable way, ethical way to solve it.
Well, I'm really sorry. I'm afraid we are now out of time. That was a great note to end on. Apologies that we didn't have a chance to get to your questions. I'm sorry about that, but I hope you'll agree it's been a fantastic discussion. Thank you very much, Massoud, Amin, Alison, Silverstein, and hopefully we'll get the chance to continue talking about these issues into the rest of the day. Thank you.